pedophilia is present in Nepal. There are many foreigners who are preying on Nepal, and the Nepali police is taking this issue very seriously in the recent years.
Respected public profile, police say Dalglish was a very different man. They allege the child advocate is actually a child abuser.
The age of consent for a sexual relationship in Nepal is 16 years old. So any individual who is 15 years or younger cannot give a consent, a fully aware consent with a sexual behavior, and that's why if an adult is having sex with a younger than 15 years, 16 years old girl or boy, then it is considered pedophilia. Now, it is well known already at least 2 years that Ram Bahadur Bomjon had been repeatedly raping Gangamaya Tamang, who was 14 at that time. She's not the only one. Setopati had made interviews with other raped nuns as well. Gangamaya managed to escape and run away together with the other raped, sexually exploited nuns. Now let's see the double standard in Nepal. So anytime a foreigner is convicted of pedophilia in Nepal, the Nepali police and CIB is very effective. They are watching the foreigner and they actually arrest him, and they actually very quickly, without any much playing around, they put him to jail. And this was, for example, the case of Peter Dalglish, whom they had been watching, that the informers.
Police burst into Dalglish's home in the hills and found 2 boys inside. They led the boys away and took Dalglish into custody. Officers also took his passport, computer, and mobile phone.
Surveillances for many days, and it is the outcome of our dedication. We have spent lots of time to bring Peter Dalglish in the frame of justice. We firmly believe he will be convicted because he committed the crime.
Short time, in a few weeks' time, they made a court, and actually he got 12 years of jail. He's currently in jail. So it was extremely effective. I don't know if he is really a pedophile. This is questionable. But the thing is that there are many dangerous pedophiles in Nepal. And the Nepali police very effectively watches them, arrests them, and rescues the children.
Police courts.
This is the prison where Peter Dalglish is being held.
Now the question is, we have a dangerous pedophile, Ram Bahadur Bomjon, Dharma Sangha, Maha Sambodhi, Maitreya, so many names, who is practically openly keeping young lovers. And there were many young girls, many young nuns, underage nuns, whom Bomjon made pregnant, and he forced them to abortions. Now I am asking the question, when it is so obvious that Bomjon had been sexually exploiting not only the 14 years old Gangamaya Tamang, but also many other underage nuns about whom she speaks in the interviews and the police reports, and who also managed to escape. So why the Nepal police was not similarly effective in arresting, prosecuting, and jailing Ram Bahadur Bomjon when he is practically moving in the open, he is making his public events while his victims are suffering. And Setopati made a big investigation into the rape case of raping Gangamaya and the other nuns, and I even met with many of the victim girls and spoke with them. This all was still not enough for the police. Instead, Sarvendra Khanal, the police who was dealing with the Bomjon's crime accusations in 2019, had published that there is not enough evidence to nab Bomjon. This was published in 2019 by Sarvendra Khanal, who was the chief of the police that time. Needless to say that the police report of Gangamaya Tamang was done when she was still not 18 years old. She was still a minor, and it was not taken seriously by the Lalitpur police. They sent her away.
Tamang tried to lodge a police complaint, but the police handed her over to an organization working for protection of children instead of filing it. Setopati investigated her allegations, Bomjon's character and the activities going on inside his ashrams for the past 3 months. We went to Asali, Rotorhat, Mekwanpur, Bra, Sindhuli and Nawakot districts and talked with 25 persons including 3 nuns, who ran away from Bomjon's ashram risking their lives and their family members in these 3 months. We talked with 1 nun, with deteriorating mental health, who left the ashram after suffering sexual exploitation for a long time. There are 4 persons, who were once his disciples, and have witnessed Bomjon's misbehavior and violence. We also talked with family members of 3 nuns who went to his ashram at different times and are missing now. We also talked with the son of a disciple missing from his ashram, and we have talked with Tamang several times, totaling almost 6 hours. A frightening picture of Bomjon, who lives in the guise of an austere sage, and his ashrams has emerged after all these meetings and discussions. He is not a sage, and there are no prayers or penance at his ashram. All of that is a facade, to show to the visitors coming from outside. He does not have any spiritual knowledge or conscience, nor does he seem to be interested in all that. He seems to be an ordinary youth with extraordinary sexual appetite. He is a sex monster, has sexually exploited not just Tamang, but many nuns at his ashram over the years. He has generously used violence to silence the voices raised against him. At least 3 nuns who stayed at his ashram are missing. Their disappearance seems suspicious on the basis of statements by their family members and eyewitnesses who have seen their harassment at his ashram. 2 eyewitnesses have told Setopati that a disciple was beaten to death on his instruction inside his ashram. The disciple's son told us that he has not heard of his father who went to Bomjon's ashram 4 years ago. Tamang went to Bomjon's ashram giving up earthly things after her father married second wife following death of her mother who had gone abroad for employment. Her father was a disciple of Bomjon, and she went to the ashram with the blessings of the family. Her father had told her that the guru takes examinations sometimes, and she felt Bomjon was taking one when he started to flirt with her and touch her inappropriately after some time. She claimed that Bomjon called her out of the kitchen inside the ashram, dragged her into another room, and raped her when his wife Deepshika had gone to Kathmandu. She saved other younger nuns after her rape, and helped them run away from the ashram. A disciple of Bomjon, who worked for him at the ashram, told Setopati that Bomjon consumes Jasagamba to boost his sex drive. He consumes Jasagamba to boost his libido. I myself have mixed Jasagamba solution and given it to him to drink, the disciple claimed. Guru's mobile phone is full of porn videos. I have also watched some of them when he used to give it to me for recharging, another disciple confided. The story of Bomjon, who appeared at the Radhanpuri jungle in Brazil 13 years ago, is unbelievable. It is astonishing how the state has been unaware about all the sexual exploitation and violence inside his ashrams. He owns hundreds of acres of land, including the 3 sprawling ashrams in Asali, Sindhuli and Sindhapur Chowk districts. He has so much money that he often uses a helicopter to travel from one ashram to another. He has a Toyota Land Cruiser for personal use. He had arrived in a carcade of dozens of vehicles for the function organized at Chinik Hill of Lalapur 1.5 years ago. There were almost 3 dozens of foreign disciples in that function that ran for many days. His disciples, who left his ashram many years ago, say he had a few pistols and a rifle, and many swords then. They claim he may have added many weapons to his armory in all these years. He gets the swords made in Kathmandu and keeps them at his ashrams. Bomjon, in this way, has become not just a threat for the young nuns in his ashram, but has become a security challenge even for the state.
हजुर अनि 2073 साल 4 को महिना 20 गते चाहिँ मलाई गुरुले बलात्कार गरेको थियो राति 9 बजे हजुर
3 वर्षको पिरियडमा तपाई त्यहाँ बस्नु नि तपाईलाई एकैचोटी 73 सालमा आएर त्यस्तो व्यवहार गरियो कि त्यहाँ तपाईले त्यस्ता खालका गतिविधिहरु तपाईले त्यस्तो पहिलेदेखि महसुस गरिराख्नु भएको थियो
मतलब महसुस भइराथ्यो हैन पहिला पनि मलाई सिन्धुपाल्चोकमा जुन 71 सालमा म गयो 2-3 महिनापछि सिन्धुपाल्चोक गएका थियो सिन्धुपाल्चोक गएका बेलामा त्यहाँ पनि गुरु आउनु भयो अनि आउनु भएर उसको बुढी चाहिँ प्रेग्नेन्ट हुनुहुन्थ्यो त्यतिखेर सिन्धुपाल्चोकमा बस्ने बेला सिन्धुपाल्चोकमा प्रेग्नेन्ट हुँदाखेरि अनि उसको बुढी चाहिँ ओम हस्पिटलमा जचाउनलाई आउनुहुँदाखेरि अनि गुरुले चाहिँ मलाई के गर्नुभयो भने त्यस्तै खाले यौन दुर्व्यवहार जस्तो व्यवहारहरु गर्नुभयो कि मलाई झ्याप्पै समातेर ओछ्यानमा यसरी पल्टाउनु भयो कि अनि मैले के सोचे भने त्यतिखेर नेगेटिभ सोचेन मेरो दिमागले पनि नेगेटिभ सोच्ने भाव पनि आएन र सोचेन पनि मैले के सोचे भने अब भगवानहरुको लीलाहरु धेरै हुन्छ सायद परीक्षा लिएको होला भन्ने त्यस्तो सोचाइ आयो तर पछि मैले धेरै कुराहरु भोग्दै गयो अब भित्तामा पनि मलाई घाटी न्याकेर लाने सिसा फुटाए पनि आफैले फुटाए पनि मैले यस्तो गरेर फुटाको उ आफैले मलाई सिसा केरे यस्तै भित्तामा दराज थियो अनि दराजमा भाडा राख्ने दराज थियो अनि भित्तामा यसरी लाने बेला मैले सिसा यसरी उयो गरेको थियो पिट्नु पनि हुन्थ्यो गुरुले अनि यस्तो मेन्टल टर्चरहरु पनि दिइरहनु हुन्थ्यो अनि त्यस्तो हुँदा पछि म जुन बलात्कृत भएर पनि पछि पनि मलाई बारम्बार यस्तो कुराहरु रिक्वेस्ट राख्नुहुन्थ्यो कि यस्तो मलाई साथ देऊ यस्तो यौन दुर्व्यवहार गर्ने जस्तोमा तिमीले अर्को साथीहरु आयो भने त्यो साथीहरुलाई नि यस्तै कुरामा हौसला देऊ भन्ने जस्तो कुराहरु गर्नुहुन्थ्यो तर मैले त्यो कुरालाई अस्वीकार गर्दै इन्कार गर्दै आएको हो अहिलेसम्म चाहिँ र छोरी मान्छेको हक अधिकारको लागि पनि त्यहाँ लड्दा पनि नभएपछि चाहिँ म सुसाइड गर्न पनि लागेको थिए त्यसै कारणले म चाहिँ उसको बहिनी पनि भागेको छ रिन्सिरमा भन्छ हैन त्यहाँ चाहिँ तर उसको बहिनीको नाम बाहिर चाहिँ गाउँमा चाहिँ उसको बहिनीको नाम रञ्जिता हो उसको बहिनी पनि उसकै व्यवहार देखेर यस्तो यौन दुर्व्यवहारहरु भोलि गएर ल ठीक छ म एउटा बहिनीलाई त गरेन अरु केटी मान्छेलाई गर्न र मलाई गर्न एउटै हो भन्ने जस्तो उहाँको एउटा भावना उहाँले एउटा छोरी मान्छेको भावना बुझेर तर उहाँ चाहिँ भाग्नु भयो त्यहाँबाट एकजना ज्योति भनेर उहाँ भाग्नु भयो तर लास्टमा गएर उहाँलाई पनि धेरै नराम्रो आरोपहरु आयो ज्योति लग्यो भन्ने जस्तो आरोपहरु आफ्नै बहिनीलाई पनि आरोप आएको थियो
Ranjita, or Rinchenmo, by the name that Bomjon gave to her, was the family's smallest child. She was Bomjon's mother's favorite, beloved smallest daughter. And Ranjita was prepared for the time. She knew it when I spoke with her in 2011. She knew that at one point she will join Ram Bahadur Bomjon in his jungle compound. She was very thrilled about it and she was very secretive about it. And very soon she started to visit him regularly in his jungle compound, but we see that she had been groomed by Bomjon's followers like Pragyaratna Gulu, who was paying for her Bara Academy studies in Pilua village just at Halkhoriya so that she can be near to Bomjon. And in 2012, when I had been chained and tortured and Matani had been chained and tortured, we see Ranjita had been called by Bomjon to stay in the jungle. So he intentionally wanted to challenge her and defile her by the presence of a torturer environment. And because of this, his mother and siblings wanted to take Ranjita home, but Bomjon refused it. There is a whole story about it. And so Ranjita stayed. She herself did not really fully understand. She was a child. She fully did not grasp what is going on, that there is a criminal environment, that women are raped, and she enjoyed her stay there because everyone loved her, all the foreigners gifted her and loved her, so she was happy. During the first years, we saw people gave her even a teddy bear, and nearby her there is Bomjon's, one of Bomjon's lovers already. And this was like an open secret that he had various lovers and various girlfriends and nuns with whom he slept. And so she was still a child with this teddy bear. She is so innocent and still believed that a beautiful life, spiritual life awaits her. But in the next pictures we already see how Bomjon actually made her one of his concubines, one of his wives, because on his right side there is his next other girlfriend, a different one than in the previous picture, and Ranjita or Rinchenmo on his left side. So he's like a king with two princesses. And because of these suspicions of incestual relationship, we don't have proofs, we don't have any other proof than the suspicion of Ranjita's mother, Bomjon's mother, what she also voiced in the media and at the police, but the police was bribed, so she could not get Ranjita out. And the next picture we see Ranjita with Bomjon's other nuns and Bomjon's one of his girlfriends, and the two nuns, number 3 and number 4, are actually those two nuns who had disappeared, and by eyewitnesses, by Gangamaya actually had been seen beaten to blood and tortured and taken away to some unknown place in the jungle, and after that these two nuns disappeared in Bomjon's insider compound. So Ranjita actually knew Bomjon's other victims, and it is very clear that she, at one point, she just might have had just enough from this criminal environment. And as Gangamaya told to the police and the media, Ranjita also escaped just before Gangamaya herself escaped from her monster, predator, rapist, murderer brother. So in the last photo, what I am showing here, Ranjita is still in 2011 during the so-called Mahadarshan event, when she still innocently believed that her brother is a Buddha, and she was considered beautiful. She was beautiful. She was very fair-skinned. For the Nepali people, this means beautiful, and she was groomed. Everyone knew that at one point she will be Bomjon's female version, kind of companion. But as we know, she escaped. Thanks God, she escaped. Here we can see Ram Bomjon walking out from a villa in Kathmandu, where his wife in green and his child are going to follow him. The child is held by hand with Panchanmo, and here we see Gangamaya, Tamang, the rape victim of Bomjon, as one of the servant nuns carrying some pillows. She is apparently one of the helpers of his wife, and we can see again she's in the background with the yellow arrow. You can see it's Gangamaya, the teenage nun, who is all the time in the household of Ram Bomjon, helping his wife. She is in the background, and now you can see even very clearly it's her face. Bomjon's followers are brainwashing as small as 2 years old children, girl children especially, that Bomjon is a god to whom they must bow and allow him to do anything he wants to. This is very dangerous because these little children have no choice, and when they will grow up a little, Bomjon can sexually abuse them like he did to Gangamaya and other girls and the nuns in his ashram. And these little children, they will not think that is something bad. Similarly, like Gangamaya thought that it's just a testing, it's a game of God. And these children are gifted many times by parents to Bomjon as a gift. I remember when I was in his birth village, Bomjon, in 2012, one of his followers, a lady who didn't recognize that I am his victim, was chatting with me, and she told me, I have just returned from Sinduli ashram of Guruji, I mean Bomjon. And it was such a beautiful sight to see all these little toddlers, 2 or 3 years old, gifted to Guruji by their parents. It is like they dedicate their children to God. I really liked the sight, she told me. I was horrified to learn this, that in Sinduli, mothers and fathers are gifting their girl children to Bomjon to stay in the ashram in the environment of rape, murders, bloody attacks, fractures and tortures of people, tortures, prolonged tortures like I went through. These little children were forced to see all this violence and rapes in Bomjon's ashrams. I saw the children running around me when I was on chain and tortured. Finally, the police went to search for Bomjon on the 18th of June 2020 in Sinduli ashram, and they didn't find Bomjon. They were searching for him in the jungles and all around, but there saw very interesting things in his residency, the sheer lush lifestyle and a double bed. So what does an ascetic who lives in celibacy need a double bed for? Is it a proof that Bomjon is living a sexually active life? And we see his nuns, many of them living just at his residency, as if they had been prepared for sexual services that he demanded from Gangamaya and other nuns, so that they are near to him and handy if he needs them. And because of this rapes and sexual harassment of nuns and young girls in his ashrams, now Bomjon is facing 14 years jail. Ram Bahadur Bomjon had been pushing through his notion, his biography and his identity to education system of Nepal. And when he was visiting Chitwan and different districts of Nepal, they were mobilizing school teachers to let the elementary school children line up for so-called blessing. The children, without the consent of parents, had been taken to Bomjon, and they were lining up for being touched by him. Bomjon makes sure that the most vulnerable, the children, are all defiled by his energy and by his influence. And the teachers, and especially from the Tamang ethnic group, but also from other groups, they are explaining to the children, brainwashing them that this is Nepal's new god. It's called Bhagavan in Nepal. So something like Buddha, Krishna, or any divine being, Shiva. So they are teaching small children that Bomjon, the rapist, murderer, torturer, kidnapper of Nepal, is actually a god. And the small children believe it. They have no choice. This tendency had been even reinforced by attempt to push through the education ministry that Bomjon's biography was included in the textbooks for the 7th and 8th grade elementary school children. The tendency to infect small children's minds with Bomjon's identity as the new god for the world started with Andrea Good, Bomjon's ardent US-Japanese follower, and she was making children's books, drawing for children about Ram Bomjon as a legend, something like a catechism of Bomjon. So the question is now, is Ram Bahadur Bomjon misusing only girls, or is he misusing also boys? It is well known that Ram Bahadur Bomjon surrounds himself from the earliest time by very, very young boys, and these boys, when I was in his ashram, I saw these young boys are used as free workforce. And they have absolutely no security, no safety. They had been sent during the nights through the 6-kilometer jungle. There is a total carelessness towards these small boys because they come from poor families. And as we see on their faces, when they are near Bomjon, their faces look very worried and unnatural, and they are always exposed by Bomjon to violent attacks, to his tortures, and to his and his followers' violent attacks towards so many people. And I was there, so I know very well that these young boys had to help him and to see me and the other tortured women on chains and covered with blood and bruises, and help him torturing us. And it is well known that these young boys had been present also during the 2014 violent bloody attack of Bomjon against 5 villagers. So these young boys, you see on their faces, they look very worried when they are with Bomjon, and they don't look natural, they don't look relaxed and happy. The only happy photos what we see where they are actually smiling are when they are pampered with foreigners, like here we see a foreign lady, probably from Thailand or Vietnam. Probably the rich foreigners are bringing them toys, mobile phones, good food, chocolates, and teaching them English. So through the foreigners they have some enjoyment of life. Otherwise they look worried and they do the most hard work. So there is an interview also by a Bomjon follower journalist, Ganga, same name like the victim of Bomjon, but this is a normal name, Gangamaya. So this Gangamaya has a YouTube studio, a YouTube channel which is propagating Bomjon, and she's trying to, in this video, she's trying to convince the viewers that the children, the boy children of the ashram where the murder happened in Sindhupalchok, they are normal children and they are just normally communicating. But anyone who understands children and understands psychology can realize from how they move, how they speak, how they look, that these boys are not happy and these boys are keeping some secrets. They are worried and they are scared. They are living in fear. But they are in a helpless situation because they have nowhere to go. And they have actually, she's asking, I will once translate this video as well, she's asking them about education and how they spend their day, and they are so degenerated because they are kept away from normal schools. They are just working in the Bomjon's ashrams and they don't have education, they don't get schooling, so their thinking and speech is very primitive. And the only thing they are sometimes learning is the prayers of Bomjon, which is actually just a few lines in a very weird language, which is not even a normal language. They don't know Tamang language well, they don't know Lama Bhasha, the Tibetan Buddhist language, and they don't know good Nepali. So these boys are in a terrible condition and degenerating. The time when Nepal is making progress in education and there are so many schools, these children in Bomjon's ashrams, they don't get education and they don't get anything what they can use for their future. So afterwards, obviously, they have nowhere to go and they are forced to actually stay in the ashram even if they don't like the violence and the sight of terrible things, tortures there, and helping to hide and dig holes for the dead corpses. They have to do this because they have finally nowhere to go. So Bomjon is actually producing a new generation of totally brainwashed robots for his torturing dharma, and this should be stopped. This is against human rights and against the right of every child of the world to get education, and every child has a right not to be involved in bloody, violent, criminal events, what Bomjon is doing to them.